Hey, Professor Zoom, thank you for showing us that you guys want the intro back. This is for you. Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a South Korean supernatural horror film called Exhuma. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens with a shaman named Hwa Rim and her apprentice Bong Gil traveling from Korea to Los Angeles. They have been summoned by a client named Park, who is a very rich businessman. Although the man is of Korean ethnicity, his family left the country centuries ago and has built a life in America. It turns out that his newborn son is mysteriously ill, and despite the doctor's efforts, they haven't been able to cure him. When they arrive, the shamans head straight to the hospital, where they meet Park's wife. The woman does not believe in supernatural stuff, but she still lets them see her son. Hwa Rim then enters the baby's ward and immediately detects the dark energy. She reveals that the disturbance is actually caused by the child's ancestors, which shocks the mother. Later, the shamans visit Park's house to discuss the situation. Following a brief introduction, Park reveals that the firstborn child in their family has always suffered. His father is paralyzed, and his older brother committed the unthinkable in a mental hospital. He also reveals that his wife had several miscarriages before giving birth to this boy, who is constantly ill. In response, Hwa Rim explains that this is known as grave calling, which means that the baby is haunted by Park's grandfather's ghost. She claims that the grandfather was buried in the wrong location and that they must either relocate or cremate him. Hwa Rim states that she can't do it alone and needs the help of others, which will cost a lot of money. However, Park does not care about money and is willing to do whatever it takes to save his child. In the following scene, the shamans return to Korea and recruit 2 more people for the mission. We meet an old man named Sang Deok, who is a feng shui expert and sells burial lands to the wealthiest people. Feng shui is the ancient practice of arranging objects and spaces to promote harmony and prosperity. Then there's another man named Young Goon, who is a mortician and owns a funeral home. After exchanging pleasantries, Hwa Rim informs them about Park and his dire situation. His grandfather has been deceased for over a century, and they must now excavate his grave on a remote mountain near the North Korean border. Upon learning about the hefty payment, the 2 immediately get on board with the plan. The next day, Park also arrives in Korea and meets the group. Strangely, he asks them not to open the coffin at any cost and to get the grave cremated as soon as possible. He claims that his parents and relatives are against it, but he wants to go ahead for the sake of his child. Sang Deok tries to ask him for information about his grandfather, but Park is hesitant, as if he is hiding something. After that, the group follows him to the top of a mountain. There are foxes everywhere, and Sang Deok finds it suspicious that someone is buried in such a location. According to Feng Shui, graves and foxes don't belong in the same place, and it is considered a bad omen. The group then examines the tombstone, which strangely bears no name, but only random annotations. Sang Deok remarks that it is unusual for someone from such a wealthy family to have such a basic tombstone. Park explains that his grandfather did a lot for the country, so the grave was built on the site recommended by a monk named Jisune. He also claims that it was kept simple because there were too many grave robbers back then. However, Sang Deok is still unable to digest this, so he abruptly leaves and sits in his car. Moments later, the others arrive and inquire about what happened. He responds that this location is too strange and that no grave should be here. He senses something evil and warns that moving anything here could endanger everyone's lives. But an adamant Hwa Rim reminds him of the little child and begs him to save his life. She suggests that they perform rituals to ward off any curses while moving the grave. In the end, the old man reluctantly agrees with her. The following day, the group returns to the mountain to dig up the grave. Hwa Rim and Bong Gil plan to perform a ritual involving 5 pigs and 5 workers born on the same year. The ritual is intended to distract the evil spirits while also helping with the excavation. Meanwhile, Park is surprised to see his old aunt, who has come to witness the exhumation of her father's grave. As the digging begins, Bong Gil recites the ceremonial chant, and Hwa Rim starts dancing like a woman possessed. The pigs are then sacrificed, and the workers eventually find the coffin. Everything appears to be going well, until a worker discovers a strange, human-headed snake in the ground. He quickly cuts off the creature's head with a shovel, causing it to scream like a human. At this moment, the weather suddenly changes and heavy rain begins to fall. Sang-diak tells Park that they must postpone the cremation today, and the latter agrees. The coffin is then brought to Young Yoon's funeral home for the night. Later, Sang-diak visits a village near the mountain and meets a monk. He inquires about Jisune, but the monk replies that he has never heard of anyone with that name. When Sang-diak asks about the tomb atop the mountain, the monk reveals that it was rumored to be filled with treasure. As a result, the location was always visited by grave robbers. The monk also shows him some belongings left by the robbers, which are still stored in his temple. Back at the funeral home, a curious caretaker proceeds to open the coffin. The shamans catch him in the act, but it's too late, and the grandfather's spirit manages to escape. Hwa Rim feels the spirit pass through her, and she quickly falls unconscious. In the next scene, we see Park's disabled father in LA. He soon hears his father's voice, who instructs him to open the window. The old man naively complies, and we see the spirit's reflection in the glass. Moments later, it extracts his liver and kills him on the spot. In another room, Park's mother is dancing while watching TV. She is also attacked by the spirit and eventually killed. Liver. Back in Korea, Hwa Rim performs a ritual to summon the grandpa's spirit into Bong Gil's body. She hopes to learn his intentions and why he's doing all this. The ritual works, and Bong Gil soon becomes possessed. He ominously declares that he will only leave after taking all of his descendants. He claims to be deeply unhappy with his family for neglecting him all these years. Meanwhile, Park receives a call from Sang-diak, who explains that his grandfather's spirit is out to destroy its own bloodline. At this moment, he hears a knock on his door, and the man outside also claims to be Sang-diak. Park is confused, but the person on his phone instructs him not to open the door at any cost. He asks him to open the window instead, saying that his grandfather will protect him. Park foolishly complies and allows the spirit to enter inside. Moments later, the real Sang-diak breaks into the room with the help of the hotel staff. He discovers that Park is already possessed and chugging water bottles. Woo! He also begins speaking in Japanese, despite never learning the language. Worried, Sang-diak quickly calls for an ambulance, but by the time they arrive, the possessed Park snaps his own neck and dies. With no other options, the shamans decide to cremate the grave before the spirit can cause further harm. Meanwhile, in the US, the spirit has reached Park's baby and is about to hurt him. Sang-diak calls Park's aunt and requests permission to cremate her father ASAP. He emphasizes that it is the only way to end the killing spree. The woman is hesitant at first, but eventually grants permission. The group then successfully cremates the grandfather's remains, along with the coffin. Simultaneously, the spirit in front of the baby begins to scream in pain before disappearing completely. After eliminating the vengeful spirit, the group returns to their regular lives and everything appears to be normal. The baby in the US also begins to show signs of recovery. A month later, Sang-diak gets a call from one of the workers, the one who cut off the strange snake's head. It turns out that since the incident, he's become extremely ill and is constantly haunted. He says that he feels uneasy. When Sang-diak arrives to meet him, the worker is in terrible condition. He regrets his actions and pleads with Sang-diak to return to the site and give the snake a proper burial. In the following scene, Sang-diak returns to the burial site and starts digging. He eventually finds the snake, which is still moving despite having its head severed. What's even more shocking is that there is another coffin beneath the snake. This coffin is large enough for 2 adults and is vertically positioned. Terrified, Sang-diak quickly summons the rest of the group to the mountaintop. It's a stacked burial, he says. They soon arrive and are shocked to see the massive coffin wrapped in dense chains and barbed wire. With tremendous difficulty, they manage to remove it from the site and plan to cremate it, but since it's already dark, they'll have to wait until morning. The group then decides to spend the night at the local monk's place, who Sang-diak had met previously. After some time, they meet with Park's aunt and inquire about the second coffin. The woman claims that she had no idea about it and urges them to do whatever they want with it. By now, Sang-diak has already deduced that the grandfather was a traitor who sold out his country during the Japanese-Korean War. He was subsequently rewarded by the Japanese and became extremely wealthy. Sang-diak speculates that this could be why the man was punished and buried in such a sinister place. However, the aunt cries and reveals that the monk Jisune himself was also Japanese. So, she does not not understand why her father was buried in a bad place after being loyal to them. Later that night, while everyone is sleeping, Bongil awakens to a terrifying bout of apparent sleep paralysis. The monk caretaker is standing on his chest, wondering what happened to his liver. Bongil then awakens to some strange noises and goes to investigate. He notices that dozens of pig livers have been removed from their bodies. We then see a massive figure devouring the monk's body in the distance. Bongil quickly summons Hwarim, and the two rush to check on the coffin, only to discover it empty. Moments later, a massive samurai approaches her and demands to know her identity. Hwarim speaks Japanese back and pretends to be a subordinate of his. He initially believes her and asks her to prepare sweet fish. It kills the mood a bit. He's like,
"Where are my sweet fish?"
after everything else he'd said had been really scary. However, the evil spirit quickly sees through her deception and proceeds to attack her. The others arrive just in time, and Bongil bravely stabs the samurai, but it has little to no effect. Instead, the samurai attacks him and severely injures him. Just then, he hears the crowing of a rooster, indicating that morning is approaching. This prompts the samurai to suddenly transform into a ball of flame and leave. Bongil is then taken to the hospital in critical condition. Later, Sangdiok returns to the monk's place alone and begins to go through the grave robber's belongings. He soon realizes that the people in the recovered photo are not the robbers. During the war, the Japanese impaled the ground with iron stakes to block feng shui energy, which is regarded as the heart of the Korean national spirit. These people were actually patriots on a mission to find and remove these iron stakes. Sangdiok then returns to the burial site, where he discovers the samurai's body lying dormant. In the next scene, he meets with Hwarim and Young Goon and informs them about the iron stakes. Based on the evidence, the group concludes that the spirit of the samurai is merely protecting the stake. They then come up with the nearly impossible plan of distracting the samurai and destroying the iron stake after digging deep into the grave. The three notice that the demon has not attacked Bongil in the areas of his body where Buddhist scriptures are inscribed. Therefore, they decide to Google Post Malone and then cover their whole bodies with the same inscriptions. The next day, the three head to the mountain for their final mission. Hwarim performs a ritual to entice the samurai demon out of the grave. She uses sweet fish because that was what the samurai requested when she first met him. With the spirit out of the way, the two men start digging the grave in search of the iron stake. However, even after hours of hard work, they are unable to find anything. Moments later, the spirit transforms into an orb of fire and descends onto the grave, where Sangdiok is still searching for the stake. He immediately launches an attack on the old man, injuring him severely. The spirit then prepares to take Sangdiok's liver, but the others throw a bucket of horse blood on him, causing him to scream in pain. During this time, it finally dawns on Sangdiok that the samurai is the iron stake himself. A vision shows Monk Jasune embedding a sword inside a decapitated samurai's body and turning him into a ghoul. Afterward, Park's grandfather's grave was placed there to serve as a cover for the relic. From this vision, Sangdiok realizes that the samurai is made of flaming metal. According to feng shui, water opposes fire and wood opposes metal, so wet wood must neutralize flaming metal. The old man then picks up a wooden stick, inserts it between the samurai's feet, and smears his blood. He then swings the stick towards the samurai and strikes him until the spirit vanishes from the face of the earth. Good thing Pokemon logic works here. As the samurai's body disintegrates, Bongil, who had been under his control in the hospital, also regains consciousness. After destroying the evil spirit, an injured Sangdiok is rushed to the hospital. He narrates that he's likely to die soon, but he doesn't mind because he has been around death all his life, and now it's just his turn. Later, we see the others crying and praying for his recovery in the hospital. Although Sangdiok was ready to give up his life, he miraculously makes a full recovery. The scene then shifts to a few months later, where the group has returned to ordinary life. We see them attending the wedding of Sangdiok's daughter, and even though she's getting married to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy, he's fine with it. And as they take a group photo, the movie comes to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.